At a time when the judiciary is facing a crisis and challenges from within and without, public intellectual Arun Shourie has come up with a timely new book, Anita Gets Bail. What are our courts doing? What should we be doing about them? Joining me now on this India Today special is Mr. Shourie himself. Appreciate your talking to us. Mr. Shourie, let's cut the chase and come to the main point. Is the independence of the country's highest judiciary really at stake, as you seem to suggest, or are we exaggerating the nature of the crisis?
Actually, it is not just at stake. I feel it is already compromised, because the way in which the benches have been managed in the last 1 year shows that they have the effect of those is to please the executive. And therefore, it is not just something prospective that it is at stake. It has already begun.
Is it about bench fixing then? Because the problem of bench fixing, many believe, has existed in the past. Chief Justices deciding arbitrarily who should Rajdeep, appear before a particular case.
Everything has existed in the past. Murder has existed in the past. That does not mean that murder is less lethal today. And I do not remember any phase, at least in the last 40 years, in which this kind of bench fixing went on for such a long time in such an array of cases. That is just one point. But the other point is that you look at this question of the way the collegium is being put down. Now you've just seen how the two names were recommended by the collegium and the government just approved one name. Now these are setting a new norm, a new normal, that we will do what we want and you will have to obey what we do.
So if the executive, in a sense, rejects Justice Joseph's appointment, as they recently did, should the judiciary be standing up and fighting it? Should they send it back to the executive and saying, you are now intruding into our terrain?
Of course, that is one point, but I would have gone much further if I had anything to do with these things. First, we should be Gandhian. What would Gandhiji have done? If you send two names, you are the final judge, that is the collegium. You send two names, the government sends you back only one name. Your natural response should be, there shall be no oath-taking ceremony at all till both names are cleared. And if I were the judge whose name had been cleared, I would have said, I will not take the oath till my brother judge, whose name was also sent up, his name also comes back to the collegium with approval.
So you are saying that Chief Justice Mishra and the collegium should virtually have some kind of a satyagraha today. That would lead to critics suggesting you are advocating a confrontation today with the executive.
But does lying down prostrate on the ground, is that one way to deal with the executive for the judiciary? This is, Rajdeep, we must remember, this is the last pillar standing. And you are faced with a totalitarian mentality. Totalitarian means that they want control of the total space, the total geographical space, the total institutional space, the total personal space. Therefore, that's why this is part of the assault on all institutions. And they are determined. You check them on the National Judicial Appointments Commission and they will come back to you in some other form. So you have to check them at every point. It's not, I mean, what is this allegation that there is you are advocating confrontation? They are not only confronting you, they are bringing a steamroller over you.
The reason I'm saying this is when in January, 4 judges of the Supreme Court held an unprecedented press conference raising some of the issues that you are. Yes. There were a number of senior lawyers, including the likes of Fali Nariman and Soli Sorabji, who appeared troubled by the fact that judges were going public with their grievances. You seem to believe, on the other hand, that that is necessary in our system to ensure that institutions are preserved.
Yes, I think they are victims of political correctness and judicial propriety.
The Sorabjis and the Narimans are victims of political correctness.
They are persons, they are among the two persons to whom I have dedicated the book. They are very great people. They have been the pillars of freedom, but they are too proper. This is the trouble with good people. They think that the other fellow is also good. No, the other fellow will not abide by any limits. And therefore, I feel that in the case of the 4 judges holding a press conference, they did an absolutely Gandhian thing. They were confronted with what Gandhiji would call an intolerable wrong. And they did everything. First, they talked to the Chief Justice, then they wrote him a letter, then they waited for 2 months, and nothing happened. In fact, worse things happened. And the last trigger was the assignment of the Loya case to a very junior judge, whose family and all have been quite close to the BJP and actually to Atalji himself. Now, that was the trigger, as they said in their press conference. So what else do you want them to do? Mr. Nariman said that no, the Chief Justice is the master of the roster, and therefore all you can do is lump it. I don't think that's correct.
The Chief Justice is not the master of the roster?
No, he's the master, a man who goes on proclaiming, me master, me Tarzan, me Tarzan. Arey Baba, you are, this office chair of the Chief Justice is something on which you are supposed to sit. You are trying to stand on it and shout. That itself shows that you know that you have no moral authority left.
Which is precisely what I want to come to. As you seem to suggest in the book, the crisis today facing the judiciary is moral, institutional, political. Is it about an individual Chief Justice Mishra, or is there a deeper moral and institutional crisis in your view that faces the judiciary?
Of course, it is a deeper crisis, but Justice Mishra certainly personifies that crisis in the way he gives judgments, in the way he writes those judgments, as I have elaborated here. I think he is certainly a symptom of the problems.
In that sense, do you support the fact that Chief Justice Mishra should be impeached in the manner that the Congress has chosen to do? Is that the right way forward?
Well, there is no other way, unfortunately, in the Constitution. So, I support the fact of the impeachment motion having been placed before the Vice President. I do not agree with the Vice President's decision because he doesn't have the authority to act on the thing. His powers are limited only to counting the number of signatures and to seeing whether the grounds that have been listed in the motion have to do with misbehavior or not. Whether the evidence backing up those grounds is adequate or not has to be determined by a committee of the Supreme Court.
So you're saying ab initio, at the threshold, you can't reject the inquiry in the manner that Vice President Venkaiah Naidu
And I am absolutely certain that Dr. Radhakrishnan or Justice Hidayatullah, these
previous vice
presidents would never have acted in this manner. But there is another point, and I want to distinguish this particular case from the general question of impeachment as the only remedy which is given. You really can't have an Indian penal code in which the only remedy, the only punishment that is prescribed is execution or death sentence. You have to have a grade of, grades of dealing with errant judges. For instance, in Justice Karnan's case, in the end, all that you could do would have been impeachment. So that's not a good idea.
No, I'm coming then to the point, Mr. Shourie, as you say in your book, that this is a wider crisis about the way judgments are delivered, about the way prosecutors are appointed in major cases, the way cases get repeatedly adjourned. It almost seems as if sab mile hue hain. Whether lawyers, judges, prosecutors, executives, sab mile hue hain in the corrosion of the judiciary. To that extent, is it right to single out Justice Mishra without proven misconduct?
No, but that is just, as I said, as I mentioned to you, he's the symbol. After all, he is the head of the judiciary today, and he is the symbol of the difficulties that have arisen. But for instance, your point, everybody is contributing to the rot. Yes, look at the way in which adjournments are given. In Jayalalitha's case, as I have documented, it took 20 years. And for 5 years of those 20, the case was lying in the Supreme Court on one small point, on an appeal of Jayalalitha. 5 years it was held up in the Supreme Court.
In fact, you go into great detail about Jayalalitha's case, and I'm just wondering whether you therefore believe that in cases involving major political figures, they are able to in any case compromise the independence of the judiciary merely by their political authority.
And by the connivance of lawyers, etc. The lawyers are much to blame. In Jayalalitha's case, actually one of the heroes of the Jayalalitha case, Mr. B.V. Acharya, who is 5 times the Advocate General of Karnataka, he says that there were so many tricks that the lawyers deployed for seeking adjournments that I could now write a book on the law of adjournments. Now, so the lawyers, similarly you take today the role of the judges on the other side. In the Sohrabuddin case, do you know how many witnesses have resiled? 52.
That's
52.
Right.
And has any single one of them been punished for perjury? No. Why don't they resile in England? Why don't they resile in America? Because they will be punished for perjury. But in India, the regime changes and the witnesses change. This happened in Jayalalitha's case. It's happening now in the Sohrabuddin case. It is happening in the terrorist cases.
Are these issues though post 2014? Jayalalitha's case predates 2014. Is it only with the arrival of Narendra Modi and Amit Shah that the problem started? Because when the impeachment motion, for example, was moved by the Congress, the executive, the BJP-led executive's first reaction was, who is the Congress to talk to us about compromising the judiciary? They were the ones responsible for the emergency in 1975.
But look at that. That way, and that means every sin of somebody justifies my sin. How can that be the case for a country to survive? Were you elected to go on repeating what the Congress did? You were elected to do things better, differently.
Is a trenchant critique of the Indian judiciary. In the book, apart from the Jayalalitha case, you focus on 3 recent judgments, 3 recent cases that suggest the judiciary at the top is protecting itself and the executive. First, there is the Kaliko Pool case, where a former Arunachal Pradesh Chief Minister's suicide note made some very serious allegations about judges. The Judge Loya case, where there is the allegation of possible murder that took place, and the medical admissions case, where there is the possibility of bribery of judges. Do you see a pattern in these cases where judges are either protecting their own or going out of their way to protect the political executive?
Both things. And there are other cases also involving where the charges have already been framed and the trials are going on. In a Chandigarh judge's case about
cash at the door.
Cash at the door. So one lesson is that when a person of your own community, the judicial community, is involved, then you must be very swift and very thorough in the inquiry. Just so that if there is a tumor, you excise it at once. Second, on the other hand, if the person is innocent, you establish the innocence so thoroughly that there is no doubt left in the public's mind that the allegations are false. Both these things are not being done. Neither of these things is being done in any one of these cases.
So what is the prescription? What is the way forward to ensure that judges do not protect their own or do not protect the executive in these high profile cases?
Well, one of the ways is that you should never allow adjournments. There was a statement of the Prime Minister from the Red Fort, I remember once, that he will ensure that all cases involving ministers or MPs will be decided within 1 year. What has happened to that? It's a very good objective. Some of us may have been arguing for it for a long time. So, what happened? There should be absolutely no adjournments.
The larger picture is clearly that the judiciary today faces a crisis of credibility and some would say of confidence. Should there be a full court meeting called of all the judges where these issues need to be discussed, and these issues could go beyond the individual of the Chief Justice, looking at the entire nature, the fact that you don't have enough judges, the fact that average citizens do not get their judicial remedies in time, even as high profile individuals are able to continuously delay cases, the manner in which the prosecution behaves. Do you believe that all this needs now the full court to sit in a transparent manner and make it available in the public domain?
Firstly, yes, the full court must meet, but it should not now start debating everything, because then it will become a meaningless, endless meeting. You focus on the 2-3 things that have arisen, that have given rise to this particular crisis. The distribution of cases, the working of the collegium, how the collegium should respond to the executive, question of that memorandum of procedure. Only on those 2-3 limited cases, yes, this full court must sit, should have sat in January, and we are now in May.
And you think it could get worse if they do not act now? Because
But
your
of
book
course.
really is a call to action.
Of course, and that is what our Chief Justice Lodha said yesterday. That is what Chief Justice A.P. Shah of Delhi High Court said yesterday. It is already too late, and it depends upon the statesmanship, leadership being exercised by the Chief Justice. If he doesn't do it, he would be, of course, failing himself, but much worse, he would be failing the judiciary and therefore the country.
The Chief Justice himself retires in September. Do you believe the problem will end with his retirement, or do you believe that the problem now goes beyond the individual? I come back to it.
Actually, Rajdeep, no, it's not no problem in life or in society or states is like a switch that you turn it on and the light will always remain on. No. I quoted a sentence in the Dhampad in which the Buddha says that as the silversmith removes impurities from silver, so the wise man from himself, one by one, little by little, again and again. So also in dealing with institutions, in dealing with social problems and so on, one by one, little by little, again and again. So it's not that, okay, Justice Mishra retires in September and everything is going to be good. No. These are, as after all, the way the judgments are written, they are not all written by Justice Mishra. The way evidence has been discarded, it's not only by Justice Mishra. This has now become the new normal of the judiciary, not a good thing.
And therefore, in conclusion, let me ask you, are you an optimist, or are you someone who believes that this confrontation, brewing confrontation between the political executive and the judiciary could get worse?
Actually, I don't know about optimism and so on, but I can tell you one thing absolutely, definitely. That the political executive will continue to try and browbeat the judiciary to the ground, without any doubt whatsoever.
This particular political executive headed by Narendra Modi, or any political executive?
Actually, all political executives, as I have shown, let's take on the provision of infrastructure, on the clearance of a larger number of judges, all of them want to keep the judiciary in the position of a supplicant. That is the phrase I have used, and I have shown it by the way they have treated the judiciary in, let's say, in Maharashtra. But in this particular case, because the mentality is totalitarian, they will not let this institution survive out of their control. To that, the country must wake up. To that, these judges must wake up. To that, all of us must be alert. Every single maneuver must be seen as part of a larger pattern, and it must be resisted at the threshold. If you keep waiting, oh, ये तो यार छोटी चीज़ है, अरे यार ये तो पहले भी होता रहा है, keep waiting for the big blow, it will be too late by then.
Wise words from you, Mr. Shourie. A call to action, as I call it. Thank you very much for joining me. Arun Shourie, as always, pugnacious, direct, and setting a road ahead for the Indian judiciary. Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching the video. For more such news and updates, please like, share and subscribe to India Today. Also check out our other great videos from our channel. We know you will love to.